Earlier today, I sat down with Dan Abrams to take a deep dive at what policing in America looks like today and what he hopes to focus on when he officially joins us in just a couple of months. Here with Dan Abrams, as they say in radio, longtime listener, first-time caller. We're glad to have you here just after the big announcement that Dan's starting September 27th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central here on NewsNation. Welcome to the NewsNation Palace.
It is great to be here with you.
Thank you very much. We just watched some interesting body cam footage, 3 clips in particular. How do you go about analyzing now, in more time than we've had sitting here, those events have happened? Those events happened quicker than we've just been sitting here talking, and yet we have hours to then look at them.
Well, look, I think what people forget is that moments happen with police officers all the time that don't make it into the media, right? Like we see these amazing moments, right? Like the ones that we just saw. And then there are the horrible moments, right? And then there's what police officers do 99% of the time, which isn't an amazing moment and isn't a horrible moment. It's just what police officers do day to day. And I think that, that's a piece that's really important to show as well. One of the things that I think that some of these body cams highlight is it shows you how what seemed normal turns into something that's not in a heartbeat.
Literally a heartbeat. We saw the guy getting whacked over the head with the glass bottle. He was a police officer standing there talking to somebody, and all of a sudden just smash.
And that's what people forget who either aren't police officers, aren't touched by police officers in some way. They forget about how some of these situations occur.
And how they go bad so quickly.
Out of nothing. And I think that's one of the value in seeing some of the more amazing body cam moments is it's just a reminder of that as well.
This probably perspective was gained out of Live PD and the show that went on that followed police officers doing the mundane that then turned into the extraordinary, either extraordinarily good or bad, depending on how the situation unfolded. And this is some video from Fort Bend County, Texas. I believe this would have been from Live PD, your old show. What were the big takeaways from the show itself?
It was the ability to identify with what police officers do every day, right? I mean, I've been on ride-alongs, but I haven't been on hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of ride-alongs. I've never been a cop, but it allowed me to get a much better sense of what police officers deal with day to day, of both the uncertainty. I mean, people say to me sometimes about Live PD, they would say, person's pulling over a car. Is that interesting? And I'd say, it may not be the most exciting thing, but if you're looking at it through the lens of the cop and the viewer, you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know who's in that car. You don't know what's going to happen. And so I think that, that's part of being a police officer, is that uncertainty of what's happening next. It's why protocols are so important, because when officers are called to a scene, they don't know exactly what's happening.
So how much of this new show will be talking about that, and how much sort of looking forward at how to better police, because obviously the crime wave we're dealing with around the country, and how much of it is looking backward at the body camera footage and analyzing what has happened?
Look, I think we'll be doing both, but I certainly think we'll be looking at body cam footage. And I think, quite honestly, that people don't appreciate police officers enough and some of what they go through. Now, believe it or not, you can be both pro-police and pro-accountability. Oh, my goodness. Can you imagine that you're both pro-police?
2 things true at once. Impossible in cable news.
Imagine that, right?
No. Shocking.
But yes, we're going to be both say, look at this. Look at good things police officers are doing every day. And yeah, if police officers engage in wrongdoing, they should be held accountable. And so I think that the more important point, though, is that it does seem that in this current media environment that you just can't show, or we haven't seen much of, the more mundane aspects of police just doing good things for people.
Right.
And I intend to highlight that.
Well, it's something that deserves to be highlighted, because if you're going to put your life on the line every day to keep all of us safe for a pay that is certainly not anything that turns extraordinary, and you're willing to do that, and you do the right thing, running into a burning building and come back out, you deserve to be hailed as the hero that you are. It brings up an important question, though, about Live PD, which is a show that so many people love, so many people remember. All the fans I know are going to be tweeting about the fact that you're coming back doing this. There was this accusation out there that because police officers were on camera, they were going to be more likely to be more aggressive or try to be more heroic or try to be more policely in their duties. Did you ever see any evidence of that?
No, but most importantly, it was just the opposite of what we were told when we started, right? When we started the show, the claim was, oh, police are going to be on their best behavior. This isn't going to reflect real policing and real police officers. Then as the show goes on, the people who want to be critics of it say, oh, well, you know, this...
Do you think were the people who wanted to be critics of it just wanted to be critics because they wanted to be critics of the show, or they wanted to be critics of police?
Oh, of police.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you felt that clearly?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think the people who wanted to criticize the show are almost always the people who want to criticize police as a whole. Again, I think important to distinguish. You can still hold people accountable and say exactly what I'm saying. So I think that by the end, yeah, there were people saying, oh, look at these police officers. But you know what? There's just nothing, and I've seen some of the efforts to sort of show, oh, well, statistically, and you know, there are people who pull out stats that are completely twisted, in my view, to somehow show that there was more violence in a particular county with police officers when live PD cameras were there. It's just not borne out by the facts as a whole. If you look at all the departments we were with, and you look at the totality of what live PD is, you're not going to be able to, I think, back up that claim in any way, shape, or form.
You know, there's another group that people love to criticize, which is the media. Favorite group to beat up on. This is the latest poll. In general, how much trust and confidence do you have in the mass media when it comes to reporting the news fully, accurately, and fairly? Great deal, 9, fair amount, 31. Not very much, 27%, none at all, 33%. This was back in September of 2020. Now, September of 2020 is important to point out because that's when neither you nor I had a primetime television show. If we did, these numbers of trust would have been much higher.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But where...
The massive NewsNation audience would have been there with us.
Yes. Of course. And they would have talked to Gallup as well. What role does the media have to play in policing itself, and how good are we at playing as journalists, media critic?
Well, it has become part of the cable news environment to be media critics, right? Fox beats up on MSNBC, MSNBC beats up on Fox, CNN beats up on Fox. I mean, that's what it's all become. But there's no sort of self-awareness, I don't think, going on in the media about, oh, wait a sec. Well, how are we maybe contributing to this? I think that one of the biggest things that people can do to help solve this is to eliminate the sense that there's a hidden bias. And the way you do that is you come out and you can say, as I will say on my show, here's what I think about this particular issue. Here's where I'm coming from on this particular topic. Now, I'm going to have a guest on. This person may show that I'm wrong, etc. We can have a civil conversation, but at least it gives the audience the information, I think, that they can then start the evaluation, make up their own minds by saying, all right, Abrams told me, he said to me, this is where he's coming from. All right, I appreciate that. I don't agree with him, but I appreciate that he told me. And I think that's going to help in terms of media credibility.
All right, 8 p.m. Eastern coming up September 27th. And between now and then, I think you're going to be back here either via Zoom, Skype, satellite, telephone, talking about.
I'm thrilled about it. Yeah, and I'm thrilled to be working with you, Leland.
We're looking forward to it. Thank you.